factor in with people. I mean, the world makes the rules. We're not here for it, like we're just here because of it. It's not here for us. It's here before us, after us.
Yeah.
And change is the only thing that's consistent. And if you don't adapt and grow and evolve, it's going to leave you behind.
It is.
You know, it's just the way it is.
It's true. Yeah.
So, because life's a mean, nasty.
It can be. It can be absolutely wonderful too, but it can be.
Well, yeah, but you look at it like from the moment you take your first breath, life's trying to kill you until it's successful.
And if it's not that, it's an eagle.
Yeah. Yeah, well, whatever. I'm 5-0. I'm undefeated.
That was some story.
Well, no, it's like the whole thing was like a saga. Like from the first eagle fight, that kind of just, like I didn't expect that kind of reaction. I just kind of wrote a quick thing when my friend was late who was helping with my gear, my friend Kendall. And then, so I just wrote it, posted it, and then he showed up. I wake up in the morning and the CBC's like,
all over it.
And I'm like, what? Like, and because for me, like I've lived in the bush and I taught myself how to just be quiet. Like I could walk in the bush barefoot and I would sneak up on bears and deer and elk and stuff like that. So I've had literally like probably this far away from me with a mama bear, jumping up and down, snorting and hissing. It was a crazy experience. I was totally high on adrenaline and like I
fight or flight at its best, huh?
Well, there's nothing you can do. Like
No.
It was literally, the whole story is just nuts, but it was like right in front of me, jumping up and down, snorting and hissing, then turned and faced me to look me right in the eyes. And I could have slapped her with at elbow reach. And then she's just like, okay, like, you want to keep going here? kind of thing. And then I'm like, okay. And then she just turned around and walked up the hill. And then I took one step forward and she stopped and looked at me. She's like, seriously?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay. And then, but it was like, I loved it. It was like and I've been charged a lot. Like I said, I scared a cougar up a tree that was like 10 feet behind me that I didn't know was there. I did it at night, and then I just stood there with a cougar above my head. So to me, this stuff is normal. Because to me, if you go in the bush, you know, we're in the mountains. There's stuff there, and you do it a lot.
Or if you go in the ocean.
Yeah.
People go in the ocean not thinking there's anything in there.
No, well, the ocean's different. I was thinking of that in my swims, right? I'm not going to do that by myself for that long in the ocean.
No way.
Like when I started, because there was a point where, man, it was around 4 hours in, maybe a little less than that. But I was right out in the middle because I didn't want to be anywhere near the shores. So I wanted to be in the middle and I wanted to be deep. But I hit a point the first night, I mean both nights, but the first night, because I did it 2 nights in a row, and there was just weeds in the, like seaweed or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle, and like I started getting in my hands and my feet, and I was getting tangled up, and I was kind of freaking out.
Yeah.
Like I was.
Yeah, that would be.
It was frantic, but not panic. And so I'm like swimming side to side because I'm not trying to make forward progress. I'm just trying to find the deep water where these stupid weeds weren't.
Yeah.
And then they were wrapping around my neck and my face and stuff like that. It was crazy. It was like 20, 30 minutes of that. And then the next night I had to do that, but I couldn't see. That was a whole other thing. It's such a epic saga for the way it all went down. And then because like I went in unprepared like a day or two early, but that first eagle fight when I was training, I learned, because it was like full wings out, talons out, skipping off the water, coming right at me, and they can cover ground. It's incredible how fast they are, how much ground they can cover. And then when you're in the water as a person, that's literally the most vulnerable, worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And worst case scenario was the day that I had to fight 4 more of them. So, but because all you have is just your head's popping up, and everyone's like, well, why do you think they were fighting you? I'm like, well, because I had a wetsuit on, they can't see my body. The water seemed more murky this year and colder. The smoke kept it colder.
Yeah.
And then, but so I'm just, my head's just there, and I've been there for a long time, so it looks like a little bunny to them or something on top of the water.
Lunch.
So yeah, that's all it was. So the thing comes, like the osprey did a flyby, and then geese did a flyby, and then the eagle's like circling this one tree far off, and it's like a little 12-year-old kid that you know is going to shoplift.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, get on with it. You're not fooling anyone here.
Yeah.
And then it just like came down, and it was, and like an eagle's been kind of like my spirit animal since I was a little kid. So I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. And I'm totally soaking it up, and time's kind of standing still for me, but it's still coming at me. And then I had to, okay, now I got to do something. This thing's coming right in my face, man. So all you have is just splash and yell. So I'm just splashing and yelling and also laughing and I'm appreciating it. And then my brain just starts splitting off in like 6 or 7 places because I'm like still treading water. And then this thing comes at me, and it was so close that it was one last flick, and then I was okay, brace for impact, but the water hit its chest, and then it just like last second just went like that, inches from my face, and then went up behind me, and not even 10 feet, because that's a ball hoop, I shoot ball all the time, and just stopped and then just dive bombed me. So I had to turn around and follow it. So I'm following it, I'm appreciating it, I'm still fighting back, and I'm still treading water, but I also I'm getting swept away by the current, so I have to still swim back to shore at the same time. And then I'm like 6 thoughts in all at once, and then I'm also thinking of how fascinating the human mind is, that you can think of all those things broken down separately while bringing it all together. I was like totally blown away. So I've learned like when I had to fight 2 at once on the morning of my first swim, and so I say they weren't that close, sort of, because they were 10 to 20 feet away. And I know the dive bomb because now my version of close with an eagle is literally inches from my face, like inches from my face where you can feel the wind cut from their wings.
Yeah.
So I didn't, like the first night, I did it on a Wednesday and a Thursday nights. On Tuesday, I found out like the most important person to shaping everything about my life was on life support, and she was coming off. So I couldn't get out of my head. I'm bawling my freaking eyes out in puddles of tears. And then I'm like, ready or not, I got to get in the water. I can't be at home. I just got to get on with it. So I didn't get my nutrition dialed because I was trying to cut weight still because I wasn't where I needed to be with my wetsuit, because I lost 5 weeks after a CAT scan in the spring, and I figured out why I'm hunched over, and I made adjustments thinking of the rest of my life, and I was in a lot of pain for 5 weeks, so I lost that. And then my new bike frame, the tube for the seat was an in-between size, so I couldn't find one, so I'm riding my bike without a seat.
Oh no.
Yeah. And then the smoke came, and I'm not going to blast my lungs in that smoke. So I wasn't prepared as I wanted to be physically. And so I had to swim with my wetsuit open, like unzipped, which means your core's open. And if you're swimming, and for that long, so if you're swimming, it actually drags too, because it's catching water and pushing it all in.
Yeah.
So I just had to do it. Like I was gonna go like the next night and stuff, but I'd been up since before 7 in the morning, so I knew that I'd be up for over 24 hours by the time I was done and stuff. But I just had to do it, and I was totally in tears, and my body was just collapsing and all this stuff. So got through it. It was gnarly. So at before 2 hours, I was so cold, I was beyond comfort cold.
Yeah, hypothermia.
At 4 hours, my teeth were hurting because they were chattering so bad. Around 6 hours, I started going into full body convulsions from the cold. And that's where the water started changing into chop a little bit. And then, so with the convulsions and that, I started choking on water and stuff. At one point, about 30 minutes left, because it was about 7.5 hours, I actually passed out while I was swimming. And then I just woke up when my face hit the water. And then, but in the pre-dawn, when it's still really dark and you can barely see silhouettes, that's when I learned that the eagles are out fishing. and so, and then so that's
good tip.
Yeah, I didn't know that one. So I had to fight 4 different ones, but 2 at once. So the 2 at once, like they're circling, and they'll be like coyotes, where one's coming that's distracting you here, and they'll come at you from behind. And their talons, like they can. Like I have a plan for if I was getting attacked again, and like I knew that I'd take this, I'd probably get that broken from the one talon, and then I'd go grabbing the other one and taking beak shots off the head, and then I would be pulling it under to basically drown it. Like that's the only thing you got, and you know you're gonna take hits, kind of thing. So when I had the 2 of them, so I had like an orange kind of like a lifeguardy floaty thing, because it had a little bag that I was going to put my keys in, like a dry thing, but it wasn't big enough. So I got another dry bag for some other stuff. I had like some energy bars and some Gatorade and stuff, and so I tied them onto a long rope behind me so I wouldn't get tied up or kick them when I was swimming. So then when the eagles when it had 2 of them, I had to follow them around me so I didn't have my back to them, and then I started getting twisted and tied up in my lines.
Right.
And then like they were literally wrapping around my neck, and it wasn't until they hit me in the face that I'm like, oh, and I picked those up and just waved those, and that's what scared the eagles off, like the ones that were like 10 to 20 feet, and they're like diving and bluffing, just like bears do their bluff charges. Like it's the same thing. And so it was crazy. And then I had 2 more singles. So now I'm 5-0 against eagles. But
after swimming all night.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my God, you must have slept for a week.
No, I didn't sleep much. And then like after the first one, like I got home, so I was up for about 28 hours, something like that. And then I fell asleep for just a little bit, but I just was crying over because of my friend. And I'm still a total mess over it. It's changed everything. Like all the stuff I'm trying to do with triathlon and stuff now, it's completely for her, for the next 5 to 7 years. And it's the whole thing I'm doing for her. I'm basically looking at like I'm going to take the world and I'm going to give it to her daughter. She has a 9-year-old daughter that she left behind. And so the second night, like I slept bare, like I fell asleep for 30, 40 minutes. I don't sleep much or well. I went to the ball court, and then I went swimming again at my place and kind of did some writing and just literally just laid on my back. I had this one friend played a song on her deck the first night of rain after like 2 months. And it's the only thing I could do. I just left it on repeat, and I just kind of laid there staring and just crying. And then I wrote quickly the whole thing about the first night, and then I'm like, okay, I got to go back. So I went back to do it again, and this time I was so crippled with anxiety because now I knew what to expect. And with like going into the cold and everything, and I was just broken into pieces because of her. Like I parked at some friend's place, they're right up from the 6 Mile, the Duhamel store, so they're like exactly a kilometer from the beach. So they let me, very graciously let me park there and just get my wetsuit on and get together and then walk to the beach and just pick my van up in the morning. But like on the walk there, I was so broken, like I'm not just crying, like I had to stop and collect myself. And then I'm like physically beat up, I'm just emotionally broken and all this stuff, and that's how I start. And then I have the anxiety from knowing what I'm about to do again. And then, thinking about the weeds and stuff. And so I get down there, and then I was in the water, at the start, because also 6 Mile Beach, I haven't been there since 1999. So I know there's an undertow, people have drowned there, so I'm like, okay, well, got to get through that and get in the water. And then just once you're in, it's swimming. So the second night, once I started swimming, I'm like, okay, because the whole deal was I just wanted to be in the water for the meteor shower. Thought it'd be cool. And then it turned into like this whole other thing.
This
art project that I'm doing that's all woven into it. And then it became about my friend Michelle. But once you're swimming, swimming's just swimming. I mean, so I'm like, okay, this night I'm thinking of the eagles. So I wanted to get further down by the pre-dawn eagle time, because I don't play the odds, man. Sooner or later, they're going to go against you with anything. You do it enough. So, and I just saw if I was swimming, you know, they come and swipe me on the back of my neck, I'd never see it coming. So, you know, you have to kind of tread water in that zone just to defend yourself or see what's out there. But so I just dug in and swam. I didn't wear goggles. I was going to wear them later if I needed to, because same thing as a mask, they hurt too much. Like I have this weird like excess fluid on my brain that like my whole head is numb. It's weird. Nothing to do with impairment or anything, or clarity of thought or anything. It's just a weird thing. But so having the goggles, like they just hurt so much. And for, you know, if I had to be there 7+ hours, there's no way. So I was going to wear them after or later. So I just swam, and then at 2:59, I finally stopped. So I swam through 3 hours straight, and I've never swam like that before. It was super, super smoky. You couldn't see the mountains. And so it felt like I was out at open sea. And then, but so when I stopped, I popped up, and my eyes were like raw. I couldn't see. I was just like, I could barely open them, and I was squinting. And as soon as I stopped, hypothermia just crushed me. So I'm trying to like tread water, and I was freezing cold. And then I turned onto my back, and then when I was on my back, I was still cold, but I just kind of using that to rest. And then my eyes adjusted a bit, and there was like this one little pocket in the sky way up high. So I got to see some shooting stars.
Nice.
A few of them.
The whole purpose.
Yeah, and then so then I kept, but then the cold was happening. So I just turn over again, and I'm in the water. I don't even know what to do because I'm just broken emotionally. I'm broken mentally. My spirit's going quick, and then my body's just collapsing and breaking down. And then I tried like the little orange thing. I tried using that like a little flutter board, but you're not going anywhere. And my legs were already, I got like vicious shin splint feeling things. Like I used to get those really bad from tennis and track and field and basketball. So when you're doing that, like the muscles just, so I was like, I actually taped up this time, but I couldn't even kick. So I'm just sitting there, and it was now, I was literally in a life or death situation, because I was so cold I could barely function, and I was just broken in every possible manner, which is kind of what I was expecting, but not like that, because I think we can all say what we want about ourselves, but you'll never know the truth about yourself until you're broken in every single way, and the elements are closing in on you, and no help's coming. And that's where I was, because I'm out in this freezing water, and there was like, I looked at the shore, and I'm like, I can't quit. I just can't. Like, I know that I can do this, but I don't know how. And everything's closing down, and literally sitting there in this freezing water, pitch black, and like, no one's coming. No one's going to find me.
Yeah, it's up to you.
It's totally up to me. And so I'm like, how am I going to do this? And it was like, I was basically facing my maker. And so the only thing I could think of is close your eyes and swim blind. So, and I knew I had another 4.5 hours to go. So being that cold already, so I'm like that was a big moment. And the people that I've told this to, they're like, I would have quit right there and went for shore. I'm like, but I couldn't do that, because I'm so mean to myself. I wouldn't have let myself live that down, because I believe in myself. And I knew I could do it. I just had to figure it out. So then I'm swimming blind with my eyes closed, and at first it's just, you know, you're swimming. But I had this thought on repeat that was, it was like I was hovering above her hospital bed, and that's all I could see. Everything's black except for the light of her and me hovering above, and then I couldn't do anything about it. Like, I just saw her helpless, and, you know, and the emotion that I feel for her, I just, you know, and the helplessness comes in, and then I get mad. You know, it should have been me. 100 million times out of a million, it should have been me instead of her. She's just like the sweetest. Aww. She's like that person that everybody's not okay with. You know, with me, whatever, death's been trying to kill me forever. So I'm the proper trade-off, but it couldn't. So the only thing that snapped me out of it was when I was crying so hard that I was in full body convulsions. And then, which is a really weird functionally thing to do, because when you're crying, you're breathing in and out, but your face is in water, and you can't do it. And my whole body was just seizing up in convulsions, and then I'd snap too, and then realize I'm like freezing cold, and I'm in the middle of this dark lake that's trying to kill me. So I kind of snap out of it, and then more times that I could count, I was actually turned around swimming towards Balfour.
Oh my
because
gosh.
I couldn't see where I was going because my eyes were closed. So now I'm swimming, I'm not only going through all of that, I'm swimming against the current backwards, sapping more energy and just crushing myself when, like I said, I was up for 28 hours and then no real sleep or nutrition through the day. And then that's what kept happening the whole time. And that whole thought on loop, and the only thing snapping out of it was the tears when I'm in convulsions. But what I turned it into was, because I was still doing this the second night was a very specific purpose for this art project that I was doing for someone. And then, so the only thing that pulled me out of it, and feels like it kind of saved my life because of the situation I was in, was all the pain and frustration that I was feeling for her on top of, I just turned everything into love, and I just used love to pour into this other project that I'm doing and to pull me through. And like the whole thing just became about love. And like that's the only thing, the only reason I survived doing that, or that's what I felt. And then, so by the time I got through it, before that, I had to go through the weeds the second night blind. I couldn't see. So, and I had anxiety from that too, and I'm crying and all this stuff. But it was actually, the weeds were a moment of solace. Like it was for 20 or 30 minutes that I was in them. As soon as the first one hit my hand, instead of being kind of freaked out about it, I embraced it. So I didn't mind them on my hands, rubbing on my face, wrapping around my neck, and my feet getting tangled. I just did the whole Zen with it. And it was a transcending thing, and just showed me more of, I guess, what I have inside me or something, and pulled me through. And then as soon as I got through the last bit of weeds and knew I was done, then the reality of I'm freezing, this lake's trying to kill me, and then my friend on life support, or whatever, however that worked out, then I just back into that loop of crying, into being woken up, kind of snap out of it into convulsions, into swimming the wrong way. And then when you started seeing Nelson, it seemed to be, the more you swam, the further away it seemed to get, and it was like really frustrating. And I actually, I felt like I needed to punish myself the second night more, because I was supposed to come out right here, kind of in front of where we are, but I came out at Red Sands Beach, which was a bit early. And I didn't, like, I wasn't okay with that. I felt like I was cheating, and
oh no,
I needed to rectify that. So what I did the second night was I swam in, when I got kind of close to Nelson, I swam into the shore on the highway and traced that in. So I'd have to, because it really opens up here, widens, so then I'd have to cut right back across and against the current to get back to Red Sands Beach. And that felt like that almost killed me. That took so long. Same thing, swimming backwards, swim with my eyes closed, even though it's daylight, and all these, the eagles weren't as bad the second day. They seemed to be worse on the shore, like the Proctor shore, not than the highway shore.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I was tracing this side, so they didn't seem as bad, because you could see them across, way more active over there. And maybe it's just less house, I don't know, who knows.
Maybe that's where they live.
But yeah, so, but it was crazy. And then I got through it. I came here, I couldn't, I was so cold I could barely talk, or because I had a GoPro and I was trying to make a video, and I was up on the train tracks, and the guy in the truck that's on the track shows up. He's like, a train's coming, so I could step off the track, but I'm in bare feet on those jagged rocks.
Oh, that hurts.
And my legs didn't work. I couldn't get back up onto the track or down below. I'm like, oh man, I'm totally stuck and I can't even do whatever. But then when I got back here, I just, like my eyes were so bad, I could barely see at midnight that night. Like they were just so red and raw, and yeah, it was
Just
a crazy.
washed all the tears and everything out of your system.
Yeah, it was a crazy, crazy experience. But it was like I said, I just feel like I came out with a huge epiphany, because my whole thing was I was just going to do it once for fun, for the meteor shower. That would be awesome. And then it took on this whole thing with my friend Michelle, and then this art thing for someone else. And then I'm like, okay, if I get through the first one, then I'm going to go do it the next night, do a second one. And if I get through that, nothing less than 7 nights in a row will be okay. I don't even care if I do 6. That's a failure to me. When everyone else is seeing what I've done, I just see what I haven't. Like I totally feel like a total failure in life, because what I want to do is so astronomically high that I never attain it. Even though behind me, I'm leaving people's minds totally blown and inspired with what I do, I just see the failure. And I've beat myself up horribly over it for around 20 years at least. Like, you know, a bunch of my friends have cursed me out over the years and stuff. Like I'm way too hard on myself. Like I was terrified of not doing 7, because I knew how much I would beat myself up. But when I came into the beach, literally right before my feet touched the sand, like, you know, up to my neck kind of thing, I was like, okay, now I got through the second one. I know I can do the third. I know I'm in really bad shape right now. I know I could do it one more time, but I couldn't do it more than that. Not in this condition. Like maybe, you know, if I can do up my wetsuit and whatever, but my eyes were a big problem. But I knew I could pull myself through a third one. But I was like, you know, what's the point? I mean, what am I trying to achieve at that point? And that's where I had this like epiphany of I was okay with not doing it instead. And so what I've been beating myself up for like 20 years, very viciously, I'm finally okay. And if I hadn't have done that second swim, that never would have happened. And I knew, and especially when I was in that moment where at 3 hours where I stopped, I couldn't see, and that's where I said I felt like real answers about myself would come. Because when you're just broken in every single way, like I said, emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, and there's nothing, and the elements are still trying to kill you, literally, and you have no help, then you really see about the truth about yourself. And if you have the courage to keep going, other stuff lays beyond that. And that's where I was willing to pay the price to go into. So, and yeah, it was just a crazy, crazy thing.
No kidding.
But it just turned into this whole...
It's an odyssey.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like I tell people, like it's this whole saga that started with the first eagle, and then that actually taught me how they really move, the ways other people don't see, because that was a face-to-face, like full tilt encounter. And then both nights I went in flip-flops, and then I left them there, stashed them at 6 Mile, and I kept forgetting to get them in the morning because I was so beat up. I just I'm going home. And so I went up maybe a week later or something, and to get them, and so I went there and I just stood on the beach, and I'm now looking at the water more as my adversary and stuff, and like, yeah, nice try. And,
understandable.
Yeah, got a new relationship with birds and stuff, and I had fish jumping all around my face, tons and tons of bats. I didn't expect the bats, and I was also thinking about like the big sturgeon that could be underneath me, right, and stuff.
There's some huge sturgeon in this lake.
So I was thinking about those and stuff. But so when I'm on the beach and I'm just kind of absorbing it, it's like a kind of a release and everything. Because Michelle, the day after I was done, that's when she died, and it felt like she was just waiting for me. It's like I said, I found out the day before she was gone. The day after I was done, it was like she was waiting for me to get through this incredibly stupid thing. And then, so when I went back to the beach, and I'm kind of having this big release, and I was crying again, and then a eagle was like in this tree right above my head, not at the top, like kind of in the middle, and then just sort of just launched away and just drifted away. And it felt like it closed the chapter of the first eagle fight to all of this stuff that's happened in between, and then I made through it. It's like this total personal quest.
It's incredible.
And so now I feel like I'm ready to, because I've been trying to, I don't know what you know of what I've done or been trying to do, but my stupid body keeps sabotaging me, is trying to take triathlon to the world, because people seem to get a lot out of me doing that. So the more I do it, the more inspired they get, and it's media and it's all crazy to me, because I feel like I'm just screwing around. And I've never been worthy of people saying all these nice things they do to me and stuff. But now, after just the epiphany of coming out after the second and being okay with that, instead of beating myself up over it, and what I just faced with myself in the middle of the water when everything was shut down, I feel like I've earned the right, like I'm okay to go after the world now. And so now I have where I said that I'm gonna do, like, I'm gonna try and go for a world record in triathlon that doesn't exist, and it just means I got to do tons and tons of them. So I'm gonna do that, and then do that for, now I'm using that, like the way I use that love for Michelle to make me basically not die out there and pull me through to find the strength. I'm going to use that to fuel this whole trip that I'm doing for triathlon, and then I'm going to give that to her daughter. There's a way that I'm already have kind of cooking up for that, that I'm going to give her at her high school graduation. So, which great. Is like a 7 or 8 year kind of thing. So my whole thing is I won't leave my dog here, and as long as I have her, we're just road tripping Canada and the US, and then a year after when I don't have her anymore, because she just turned 8 at the end of May, so 3 to 6 years.
She's in good shape.
Come here, come on, up, come here. No, she's awesome. Celeste has a lot to do with that at the animal hospital.
Oh yeah, she's in great shape. Hello, sweetheart.
But so I figure 3 to 6 years, something like that.
Outside. Is that what you want?
And then that's when I'm going to go to Australia, New Zealand, like the first winter, and then over to Europe.
Oh,
and
cool.
Their homelands actually, I don't know which one of the modern nations, but it was, I think, Yugoslavia. So, but I don't know which one. So I might go there for her daughter, to the home and
Croatia
stuff. Croatia
or Serbia.
I just...
Yeah,
so it's like this whole mission now, but this whole swim like literally changed everything about my life. And it's made it really weird for coming into town and stuff, because people want to talk about it, and they're all crazy about it. And to me, I'm just like, that was what happened on Monday. And
it's Friday now, and I've moved on.
Like I was trying to tell that to the CBC, because I'm just like, this is not, it's a big deal to you, but to me it's just normal. So I have a total different take on it. And then the whole thing of the swim, when I'm telling people about that and they're saying how crazy it is, to me it's kind of surreal, because I went through it and it was nuts, but I'm just used to that kind of stuff and punishment on myself, and then having a broken body and the stuff I've had to drag myself through, because it'll be 28 years, September 8th, that my body started falling apart. And